Yeah, I mean, our goal is like basically to do something that have it be sort of interesting, fun, and ultimately useful, and to spur creative ideas for what is actually the smartest way to take the trillions of tons of carbon that we've removed from the ground and will remove from the ground, from deep underground, and we've placed that carbon in the atmosphere and oceans. Which obviously changes the chemical constituency of the surface of the Earth.
Yeah.
Now I should sort of measure my statements in that I think the Earth, like I don't think we're currently doomed, to be clear. This is very important. Very importantly, you know, there are people in all parts of the spectrum ranging from nothing to worry about, CO2 just makes things better, to we're doomed and there's nothing we can do about it. I am somewhere in the middle. So my concern with the CO2 is not kind of where we are today, or even the current rate of carbon generation, but really if carbon generation keeps accelerating and we keep getting increase in the Keeling curve, the CO2 possibility in the atmosphere, and if we keep going and if we're complacent, then I think we could. There's some risk of sort of nonlinear climate change. So thus far we've seen the CO2 possibility be fairly linear on our time scale, although it looks very exponential on geologic time scale. But there are certain potential nonlinear events, like if we raise the temperature to the point where we melt the Siberian traps or something like that.
And methane escapes, yeah.
Yeah, there's just a massive amount of sort of frozen dead plant and animal matter in Siberia. There's potentially trapped gases deep in the ocean. If the ocean warms, that could be released. So these are just risks that are not wise to take. And since we know that long term we're going to have renewable energy anyway, because we'll run out of oil and gas. It's not going to last forever. So we know where this ends up. This has to end up with renewable, sustainable energy. It's tautological. It's really just a question of, do we try to get there sooner or later? And we should try to get there sooner. It's obvious. Why run the? How long do you want to run this experiment? As I said, I am. People sometimes think I'm sort of like. I'm kind of in the middle of the spectrum. I think if we stop CO2 production today, which obviously we could not do without civilization coming to a grinding halt, and mass starvation and all sorts of terrible things happening. So we could not stop CO2 generation today. But I think at the the sort of 400. Possibly even 500 ppm level, I think it's probably okay. But if as the world industrializes and we're sort of at 8 billion people, get to 9 billion people, have a lot more industrial output per person, you could see at what might be okay at sort of 400 or 500 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere might become quite dire at 1,000.
Yeah.
And the trend is certainly in that direction if we don't do anything about it. So that's why I think it's just probably an unwise experiment to run. Even if you think that this is why I think it should be a compelling argument to even those who would assign a low probability to increased CO2 causing problems. Like, let's say you think it's 99.9% likely that adding all the CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere is going to be fine. So you're saying there's a 0.1% chance of disaster. Well, there's only one. So right now we're going to get one planet. Well, even a 0.1% chance of disaster, why run that risk? That's crazy. So I think what's likely to play out is that we will continue to add a lot more CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere, and also, ocean acidification, as you know, is also an issue. You don't want to sort of add carbonic acid to the oceans and change the pH level. because it destroys reefs. And yeah, I think it's hard to complain. The outcome so far has been great. Although obviously, we've not yet sent anyone to Mars, and hopefully will in the future. And so a SpaceX craft will be the next craft to put humans on the moon. I believe the first human will be a woman actually this time.
Yes.
So this is great.
Yeah.
But of course we have to actually do it. Here's the problem is right now there's really no way to get around the physics of a rocket. So I think it's important for the long-term preservation and ultimately the expansion and extension of the scope and scale of consciousness and the long-term probability of survival of humanity and life as we know it. We must become a multi-planet species. Like, I'm optimistic about the future, but you can also say, like, okay, well, so how long do you think civilization will last before there's a catastrophic event? If you say infinity, this is not correct.
Yes.
Okay. This is not. History does not suggest that. So there's been many civilizations that have risen and fallen, and anyway, we've got to preserve. We've got to become multiplanetary, and right now the only way to do that is with rockets that do burn fuel. But we do have a long-term plan for sustainability of even rocket flights by generating propellant using sustainable energy, wind and solar, to generate, starting first with liquid oxygen. And for our Starship vehicle, it's almost 80% liquid oxygen and 20% liquid methane. The oxygen, it's obviously pretty easy to create that. You just use wind and solar electricity, and you do air separator because you've got the oxygen already in the air. The plants are making the oxygen, so you can just use electricity, basically renewable electricity, to create 80% of the propellant on the rocket. And then for the remaining 20%, you can use the Sabatier process, where you actually take CO2 out of the atmosphere and you combine that with water to create CH4 and more O2.
Yep.
And that's in fact what we would do on Mars.
Sure.
To generate propellant.
Sure.
So there is a long-term plan for sustainable generation of propellant for the rockets. I do want to emphasize that. And if there's some other way to do that now, we certainly would.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to sort of address this apparent inconsistency in if generating carbon is bad, why are you doing that with rockets?
Yeah.
No, they think it's like, so going to Mars reads like that ad for Shackleton going to the Antarctic. It's dangerous, it's uncomfortable, it's a long journey. You might not, come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, and it'll be amazing things, So if an arduous and dangerous journey where you may not come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, sounds appealing. Yeah, so we've got hopefully a great mission planned for tomorrow. This will be our third flight of people to the space station. We had the test mission with 2 astronauts, then the first sort of operational mission with 4. This is our second operational mission with 4. It's an international crew, a great group. So I'm actually heading over there tonight just to wish him well. Do you want to be on the first flight of that airplane when it comes out of the factory, or do you want to be on a later flight? I'd say let somebody, let the test pilots do their thing before you fly a plane. So flying a plane, you want to see that plane has flown a few times before you get in it, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it should be on balance better. And then we'll also be start reflying the spacecraft.
The Dragon, yeah.
The Dragon spacecraft.
Beautiful.
So we're trying to get reusability is obviously very important. Sure. Well, I think the thing that's least obvious from when it's on the ground, from the videos and pictures, is the size of it. So it's going to be the largest flying object ever. So it'll be twice the thrust and weight of the Saturn V.
Amazing.
So that's just from a side, and taller. So including the launch escape tower. So it's a very tall rocket. This rocket is capable of at least 100 tons and probably closer to 200 tons of useful payload to the surface of the moon. So it's designed to be far in excess of NASA's requirements.
Yeah.
And so it's really intended to be something that that can enable a permanently occupied base on the moon. So, you know, we've got obviously permanently occupied base in Antarctica, and it would be great to have one on the moon as well.